So there have been many studies that have shown that the way that we eat here in the United States, or a Western diet, is linked to an increase in Western or chronic disease. One particular study was done in the early 1980s where they did it with a group of a small group of an Aborigine tribe in Western Australia. And this tribe had lived in the bush, but they had traded that lifestyle for a more modern lifestyle and civilization. And with that swap, they traded how they ate, like whole foods and nutritious things that they had hunted and gathered and grown, and they traded that for how we eat in the West, which is more processed foods, highly refined foods, things like that. So with that trade came chronic disease, specifically obesity and diabetes. So the study took the tribe, they put them back in the bush for 7 weeks to live off of the land. And after 7 weeks, each of them had lost an average of 18 pounds. Their chronic diseases had either greatly reduced or disappeared altogether. And this reversal was attributed to them going back to a more traditional whole foods plant-based diet. The CDC tells us that chronic disease is now the leading cause of death and disability in the United States, and they attribute poor nutrition as a direct cause to that increase. This is why we should eat a more traditional plant-based diet to reduce our risk of suffering from some of these diseases. Eating is something that we do all day, every single day, so it's important that we understand why we need to make good food choices and why we need to change how we eat now and how we can do that easily today for better nutrition and better health. According to my Understanding Nutrition textbook, 66% of adults and 33% of children or teenagers are overweight or obese in the United States, and weight issues and nutritional issues often go hand in hand. This lack of nutrition is just from us making such poor decisions about what we put into our bodies, and it has a huge role in the risk of us getting these chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, all kinds of different things. Obesity, obviously. And in our society, we're not eating food anymore. We're eating food-like products. Oh, I need my clicker. So we're eating things like, or giving our kids like goldfish crackers, or how about Go-Gurt in the little tubes, or even bread. So here, it's kind of blurry, but this is the ingredients list on just Great Value white bread. And we can see, like, look how many things are in there. We don't even know what these things are, we can't even pronounce half of them. This is my grandma's recipe for yummy rolls. And we have like, I don't know, 6, 8 ingredients. We know what they all are. They're all familiar to us. We can see how something as simple as bread turns into more of a conglomeration of chemicals and preservatives. The food system that we have here in the United States, it makes it more accessible for most of us to have cheap processed foods instead of buying fruits and vegetables. It's so much cheaper to buy Hamburger Helper or things like that. The government subsidizes crops like corn, wheat, and soy, and this makes it so that lots of farmers are growing those things, they're making a surplus of it, and they do it cheaply. So a lot of items at the grocery store are filled, most of the items at the grocery store are filled with these things, and they're not good for you. One of the examples of these forms of corn, wheat, or soy is high fructose corn syrup, which everyone hears a lot about that. And Michael Pollan, in his book, In Defense of Food, he says that chronic disease can be directly linked to the industrialization of food, which is characterized by highly processed foods, highly refined foods, lots of additives, chemicals, high-fat, high-sugar foods that they have depleted the original food of its nutritious value, and we eat so much of it because it's in everything that it narrows our diet down to corn, wheat, and soy. We have only eaten this Western style of diet for several decades, but we ate a more traditional diet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before that. Traditional diets vary so much from culture to culture, but one thing that they didn't have was highly processed, highly refined foods. they were eating, no matter what culture you look at, it was fresh foods that they had grown, that they had hunted, that they had gathered themselves. And humans can thrive on a big variety of diets, but the Western diet is not one of them. The other thing that traditional diets focused on was people. We used to prep meals together and eat together instead of running to the gas station or to the drive-thru on the way to work and grabbing something really quick. And if we return back to a traditional way of eating, we'll see a lot of benefits from that. One of the things that we can do is to reduce our red meat intake. When we eat, the problem isn't with eating meat, it's that we eat so much of it that it increases our levels of saturated fat and cholesterol, which in turn increase your chances for chronic disease. When we eat all this meat, it's pushing out the room that we could have for plants in our diet. And fruits and vegetables are so good for you. They're packed with nutrients and phytochemicals and vitamins and all those things that can detoxify the bad things that we eat and eliminate toxins in our body. There's countries, in the countries that eat more than a pound of fruit and vegetables a day, they have half the cancer risk that we do in the United States. And when we make our diet mostly plant choices, there's not very many drawbacks, but there's a lot of benefits, including being able to control your weight better, having a longer life expectancy, and a lower risk of your getting the Western chronic diseases that we see so often. And also, vegetarians, they have a significantly lower cancer rate than we do, or than the general population. So, in the book, In Defense of Food, he shows us some guidelines of how to eat, some easy ways to remember what to eat. One of them is if your great-grandma, or you might have to go back to your great-great-grandma, great-great-great, if she wouldn't recognize it as food, don't eat it. So, like Easy Mac or Lunchables or things like that. Probably stay away from those. If it comes in a package, it should probably stay there. Think TV dinners or hot dogs. If it can't rot, don't put it in your body. Like Twinkies or those McDonald's French fries that you gave your son, it's under the car seat still from a year ago. Probably stay away from that stuff. And if it has more than 5 ingredients, especially if the ingredients are unfamiliar or unpronounceable, then probably stay away from it. And shop the perimeter of the grocery store. And one of the easy things that we can do is we can prep and cook our food ourselves, like a lot of us have talked about, and really bring that meal sharing back into the family and the meal prepping. So we need to eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's what Michael Pollan tells us to do in his book. So eat real traditional food, not food-like products, lower our meat consumption to a healthy level, choose plants more often, and eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Use those 7 words to guide our food decisions. It will lower our risk of chronic disease. So let's do like the Aborigines did. Let's give up this Western way of eating. Let's go back to a traditional plant-based diet. And eating is something we do every single day, every day, all day. So make your food choices count for your health, not against you. And that's my grandma, by the way, that gave me the yummy rolls recipe.